Hi everyone, in this series I'm going to walk you through how to get a Statamic developer environment set up so that you can use Statamic as a content management system. So why am I making this video series? Well, Statamic is brilliant once you're up and running, but setting up a development environment and getting all the cogs in place can be quite daunting, especially if you're not used to dealing with different development environments. Because Statamic is set up using something called Composer, and version 3 also runs on the Laravel framework, it can be a little bit of a house of cards in terms of how things stack up on top of each other. So I will say before I start that there are a number of growing videos that the team are putting out on their website. If you go to statamic.dev/screencast, then /installation. The reason I'm making my own video series is partly for myself, to remind myself how to do things, and also because I've just installed a brand new clean install of MacOS Big Sur. So everything is squeaky clean, and I'll likely be in the same position that you are. So everything is neutral, and we should run into the same problems if there are any problems. It's true that you can probably get Statamic set up and running with a more basic environment. So for example, if you're already running something like MAMP, then you can probably just point it at that. And it is true that you can configure Statamic to run through different hosting solutions. But having nagged the Statamic community over the last 6 months, the setup I'll show you is either the most recommended setup or the easiest. Since Statamic runs on Laravel, what they recommend for a developer environment is something called Laravel Valet. Now, even if you end up not using Statamic at all, Valet is still really useful as a development environment. It basically means you can half replace MAMP. So if you do use MAMP already, or if you don't use MAMP, let me explain. So MAMP is one of the most popular graphical user interfaces for managing a developer environment on macOS. And it stands for macOS Apache, although they also offer Nginx these days, which is a newer web server. And then the M stands for MySQL, and the P stands for PHP. So what we're getting with Valet is we're getting Nginx and we're getting PHP. These two things are needed for Statamic to run, but they're also really useful if you just want to spin up like a static site. So if you want to make a static HTML site that maybe runs on PHP so that you can do some fancy things like add some includes, then it's really nice for that as well. I tend to use Valet for static prototyping as well. And then I only move over to something like Statamic once the client wants to edit the site. If you already have MAMP set up, then what I'll do is I'll add some instructions in the article which will tell you how to run both MAMP and Valet on the same operating system without there being any conflict. But for the moment, I'll just assume you don't have MAMP and you have like a clean install similar to me. To get Valet up and running, the first thing we'll need to do is go to Homebrew. Now, Homebrew is a package manager for macOS. So I'm on the Homebrew site and it says to install Homebrew, we paste this command into terminal. So it already has like a little clipboard button here, which I'll click. So that's copied that. So now if you open up Spotlight and type terminal, I'm using Alfred, which is a Spotlight replacement, but you'll have the same thing come up here. And that's opened up a new terminal window. So we can see that this is where we're located at the moment, just in my home folder. So I'm going to paste this command and just hit enter. It's going to ask me for my password. And then it's given me, let's just make this bigger so you can see. So this is just telling me what's going to be installed. I'm just going to hit return or enter to go ahead. While this cursor is still a block, so before it starts blinking, it's still doing things. So I can see at the moment it's downloading command line tools for Xcode. So I'm just going to fast forward this video now until everything's caught up. At this point, just to say that it's likely going to take a little bit of time for Xcode to install, so don't worry if it sort of hangs. Just wait until the cursor starts blinking and you should be fine. So when everything's finished, you should have something like installation successful and then some next steps. So now that we've got the package manager installed, we need to start installing packages. The first thing we're going to install is something called Composer, which is similar to a package manager, but it manages dependencies. So what are the minimum things that we need to run a whole package like Statamic? This will manage all those things because in reality, lots of Statamic is built on lots of different bundles of technologies. So let's install Composer, which will allow us to manage those dependencies. So if you Google install Composer, currently it's the second link you need, which says download Composer latest. So if we click this, So similar to Homebrew, it says to quickly install Composer, run the following script. So we're going to copy this. We're going to go back to terminal and we're going to paste it. Hit enter. And it should be pretty fast. So at this stage, you may need to log out and log back in again. Let's see what happens. The next thing we need to do is the first gotcha, if you like. So we need to move Composer to our user path so that we can use it globally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this command that I've got in a separate window, and I'll put this in my article so you can just copy it. So we're saying sudo, which is, I think it's like super do. So we're saying to macOS that we definitely want to do this. And then we're moving Composer into a directory which will run it globally. So I'm going to hit enter and see what happens. Put my password in. So now that we've got Composer installed globally, let's try and install Valet, which is part of Laravel. We're going to use Composer to do this. So I've typed in Composer global require Laravel Valet. You can find this command further down in my article and hit enter. So it's doing a load of stuff and now it's finished. So now that we have the Valet package, we now need to install Valet. So you can see what I mean by this is a complex stack, but once we're up and running, it's fine. So I'm going to go Valet install. Command not found. So this is gotcha number 2. So at this point, we're going to paste in this command, which starts with test. So I've searched my article for the command that starts with test, and I'm going to hit enter. Put my password in. So it's stopping the web server, and now it's saying that Nginx isn't installed, so it's installing it. So I paused the video then to let it do its thing, and it took maybe 10 minutes or so. But we can see after all these messages, it says Valet installed successfully. That's it for this video. We've made our first step by installing Valet, and we've also installed Composer. So that's 2 huge things that we've taken care of. Hopefully you'll find the next steps after this slightly easier.